You feel it first as a subtle pressure, a pull against the edges of your consciousness, as if the world itself conspires to shape your thoughts before you even know they exist. You move through streets and screens, conversations and ads, sensing threads that pull at you from invisible hands. Every decision, no matter how private, is nudged, guided, rerouted. You see the rules in everything, the patterns of expectation that whisper obedience, but you also notice the gaps, the spaces where the control falters, where a spark of choice flickers. And in those gaps, your mind wakes. The chains are not iron, not steel, not even wire. They are shadows cast by unseen architects, algorithms humming quietly, authorities scripting behavior, society bending perception into corridors that seem endless. You feel their weight because you know too much, because you see the edges of the invisible. You try to speak, to step outside, and yet the walls ripple as if alive, sensing your defiance. Even silence becomes a language of captivity. Each pause in thought, another leash tightening around the wrist of your attention. Yet within that confinement, a spark insists on breathing. You remember a time before awareness, a time when every move was automatic, every reaction predictable. Weakness was your default, trust given freely to the structures you now recognize as elaborate mirrors reflecting the will of others. But now, each breath of understanding carries the weight of revelation. You notice the contrast between the soft illusion of freedom and the sharp edges of manipulation, between your quiet intelligence and the orchestrated chaos around you. Betrayal is everywhere, not as an event but as a system, ancient in its design, refined to influence without leaving a mark, to trap without chains you can see. In these moments, you feel both powerless and strangely potent. Every glance, every hesitation becomes a test for you and for the system. Watches, waiting for compliance, expecting ignorance. But inside, a deeper rhythm grows, a mental pulse that cannot be erased. You recognize patterns in shadow, footsteps that do not belong to any visible being, currents of influence that bend the behavior of crowds, yet falter in the presence of a mind awake. The pressure sharpens, and with it, the clarity. The invisible chains are real, but they are not unbreakable. You are learning their architecture, feeling their weaknesses in the corners of thought, sensing the spaces where your freedom can stretch, bend, and eventually move beyond them. Every heartbeat echoes against the walls of control, a secret drum signaling a subtle rebellion. Awareness becomes a blade, carving through the haze of expectation, revealing not just the framework of power but the potential for mastery. The world hums its quiet instruction, but you are listening for something older, something deeper. A voice without sound, a pattern in the void, reminding you that captivity is only a perception, that strength lies not in defiance alone, but in the patience to understand the rules well enough to bend them. Each passing second confirms it. You are not yet free, but you are no longer the prey. You are the mind that sees, the eye that refuses to close, the pulse that quickens in the shadow of invisible chains. You feel it before you can name it. The unease that lingers in your chest, the quiet whisper at the edge of perception, telling you that your choices are not entirely your own. Each scroll, each interaction, each subtle nudge toward a decision you thought spontaneous is an echo of a design you cannot yet see. The patterns are deliberate. The puppeteers exist in the spaces between moments, pulling strings you cannot trace, threading invisible hands through the fabric of your daily life. You begin to notice the synchronicities that are too precise to be coincident. The timing of messages, the direction of conversations, the push and pull of social currents that seem to steer the course of your thoughts. They are patient, they're silent, they are waiting for you to slip, for you to falter, for you to obey without question. Your world narrows under the weight of unseen eyes. There is a rhythm to the chaos around you, a pulse you have always felt but never defined. Every recommendation, every trending topic, every fleeting trend has been calibrated to mold your perception. At first it feels benign, even comforting. The system lulls you, promising clarity while subtly reshaping your... And then the realization strikes: what you believe to be personal is curated. What you assume to be choice is engineered. The betrayal is intimate because it is invisible. You cannot confront what hides behind layers of algorithms, policies, and social engineering. And yet, you sense it. You feel the constriction in your mind as if the air itself has been measured and rationed. The most unsettling part is the awareness itself, knowing that every action you have taken has been anticipated, that your smallest impulses were never entirely yours. The old rules of engagement, intuition, instinct, trust begin to fracture. You see how your patience, your careful observation, your subtle attempts at autonomy were monitored, logged, and analyzed. There is an almost sacred cruelty in this orchestration, to know your patterns, to predict your hesitation, to exploit the moments of doubt before you recognize. The system is a mirror, but it distorts rather than reflects. It watches silently while you flail unknowingly, shaping your world into a labyrinth you cannot escape. Yet in the recognition lies power. The moment you name the puppeteers, you shift the balance, if only slightly. Shadows retreat from the corners of your vision, revealing the architecture of control. The eyes that followed you through every decision no longer hold omnipotent. They become predictable themselves. Every push against your autonomy was a clue, every pattern an invitation to see beyond the surface. You begin to measure their timing, anticipate their strategy, and understand the motives that operate like cogs in a machine older than you can imagine. This is the point where fear sharpens into strategy, and submission fractures into vigilance. You are no longer a passenger. You are awake, and even in the silence you feel the tremor of their awareness. They have noticed you. The game has begun. You make the first move, subtle, almost in a choice so small it seems harmless, ignoring the curated path, speaking when silence is expected, refusing the ritual of compliance. The system doesn't notice at first, it never notices the quiet one. But in that single act, a tremor passes through the air around you, feel it before you see it. The weight of unseen eyes, the almost imperceptible shift in energy, the hum of attention bending toward your defiance. For the first time, you sense the power of your own unpredictability, the liberation in moving where no instructions guide you. Your hands tremble, though not from fear. It is excitement, the raw electricity of autonomy. Every step you take off the prescribed path feels dangerous, like walking the edge of a cliff where shadows stretch long and silent beneath. You realize the system relies on patterns, repetitions, predictable obedience. It thrives on the mundane, the habitual, the unquestioning acceptance of rules etched into the framework of your days. And yet, with one small deviation, one carefully unguarded thought, you crack its code, you taste it. The sweet fear of discovery mingled with the intoxicating clarity of self-sovereignty. A shadow moves behind the edges of your vision. Maybe it's the system itself, maybe it's a mirror of your own conscience reflecting every hesitation, every calculated gamble. Betrayal lingers in the air, but not against you. For once, it is you who betrays the expected. The quiet world of obedience you were born into recoils, flinches at your initiative, and in that recoil, you see the truth of your own strength. You are no longer a pawn, a cipher in someone else's strategy. You are a force the system did not anticipate, and the tension of being unforeseen ignites a fire that had lain dormant in your mind for years. It is not reckless. You move with purpose, tracing the outlines of opportunity hidden in plain sight. The consequences hover, intangible yet real ripples waiting to meet their mark. Every choice you make echoes with the weight of unseen watchers recalculating, adjusting, scrambling. But the thrill is undeniable. You feel the friction between the world's expectations and your own agency, and it sharpens your mind. You understand that power is not in loud rebellion, but in the quiet, deliberate steps that dismantle control from within. And then it happens, a pause, a breath suspended between chaos and stillness. You sense the system noticing, almost imperceptibly at first, the tiniest hesitation in its omnipresent gaze. Your slip-up, your liberation is contagious. It reverberates silently through the framework of the rule, weakening their grip, exposing the cracks no one else dares to confront. In this suspended moment, you understand the paradox. The smallest act of disobedience carries the weight of mountains, the potential to shift the landscape entirely. And yet you move forward with deliberate calm, each step a quiet defiance, each heartbeat a signal that the sleeper has awakened. You are not reckless. You are precise. You are the shadow that slips through the cracks, the silent agent rewriting the rules without a single word. Every system built to contain you begins to falter under the gravity of your unpredictability, and you recognize that this first slip-up was never a mistake. It was initiation, a ritual of emergence. The moment you stop following is the moment you begin to understand your own power. The tremor you caused is no longer small. It is a pulse, a message written in silence, announcing to unseen watchers that a new player has entered the field, one they cannot predict, one they cannot control. The streetlights flicker, their glow too deliberate, too watchful, casting long, trembling shadows that follow your steps. You notice the way conversations around you falter when you approach. A cough here, a glance there, nothing overt, yet unmistakably aligned. Every digital ping, every notification seems orchestrated to mirror your thoughts, to reflect a version of reality that is just slightly off. You sense eyes where there should be none, hidden behind glass, beneath hoods, behind screens. The watchers are patient. They do not rush. They measure, calculate, wait for the smallest crack in your... A file appears on your device, unnamed, time-stamped to the exact moment you doubt begins. Words you never typed, images you never captured, whispers of intentions only you have dared to consider. You scroll, heart thudding against ribs, knowing that your most private musings are cataloged, stored, dissected. There is no malice yet, only attention, the silent pulse of intelligence studying yours. Each gesture becomes a signal, each hesitation a map. You move differently, eyes sharper, body attuned to subtle shifts in your surroundings. The air itself seems to react to you, bending, stretching, conspiring in ways you cannot yet name. You recognize the choreography of control. It is subtle, woven into the routines of the world, hiding behind ordinary transactions, casual smiles, empty greetings. The system's breath is on your neck even when streets are empty, and you realize how many masks people wear unknowingly. Every ally may be a watcher, every friend a messenger of a reality scripted behind the curtains. You begin to anticipate footsteps before they echo, preempt questions before they are asked. Silence has become a language, and in that language you learn to read the movements of predators who never reveal themselves. The game has changed, and yet the rules remain invisible. And still there is exhilaration in the awareness. Where once you felt small, manipulated by forces unseen, now you navigate with the grace of someone who has seen the machinery beneath the surface. The shadows that once intimidated you now stretch before you, pliable and revealing. You recognize the ancient symbols hidden in patterns, triangles of attention, circles of influence, the weight of gazes like talismans binding unseen will. The watchers do not know you have seen them, and in this knowledge lies your first taste of power. Each observation becomes strategy, each pattern a weapon of subtle subversion. You are no longer simply moving through the world. You are moving it silently, deliberately, in the quiet chaos of their own making. The room feels colder than it should, though no doors are open. Shadows crawl along the walls like predators sizing up a prey they cannot yet grasp. You move quietly, deliberately, every thought a calculated step, every hesitation a weapon. The system has eyes you cannot see, ears that listen to everything you say in silence. Yet you begin to anticipate their rhythm, their patterns, their tiny fractures. Each decision you make is measured against the invisible chessboard, pieces aligned not for their own sake, but to provoke, to mislead, to trap. You remember the countless times you felt powerless, the way routines bent around your mind without mercy. Yet now each memory is a lesson, a map of vulnerabilities waiting to be turned into leverage. You do not rush, you do not tremble. You move like someone who has already endured the fall and knows the air beneath them will carry their weight. Every interaction becomes a reflection of deeper truths. The whispers of colleagues, the carefully curated information that drifts through your feeds, the subtle nudges from unseen authorities, all are notes in a score you alone can read. You sense the fissures in loyalty, the silent betrayals hidden behind smiles, and you place them on your board. Each human response, each automated nudge, becomes a predictable variable, a part of a system that once controlled you but now bends insight. You imagine the ancient kings who played games for life and death, the generals who studied terrain and temperament, and recognize the echo in yourself. Strategy is not just action, it is observation. It is silence made lethal. It is patience wielded like a blade that cuts not the body, but the certainty of those who underestimate. The mental chessboard expands beyond the visible, into corridors lined with secrets the watchers assumed were theirs alone. Files you were never meant to read, messages never meant to reach you, vulnerabilities never meant to be noticed. They surface and you know their way. You study them, turn them over in your mind, and find the angles where control slips, where influence fractures, where the system itself hesitates for the first time. You feel the thrill of mastery, not loud or boastful, but a quiet, sharp certainty you hold pieces others cannot see. The contrast is stark. Where you were once blind, now every shadow tells a story. Where they assumed dominance, now you dictate the pace of engagement. Every choice is deliberate, every silence pregnant with consequence, and the watchers, though unseen, begin to sense the shift. You are both observer and player, the calm at the center of calculated chaos, and every move you make resonates beyond what is visible, reshaping the landscape with the subtlety of a ghost and the precision of a sovereign. The moment arrives with a quiet ferocity. You feel it before you see it, a tremor in the currents that have always seemed to guide the world around you. Every subtle nudge, every calculated suggestion that once shaped your thoughts now bends your will. You move through the shadows like a phantom, unseen but omnipresent, tracing the patterns of those who believed they controlled the board. The system believed in inevitability, in the predictability of your steps, and yet here you are, a disruption in its design, a question no algorithm could compute. Every digital trail you leave is a whisper of defiance, every hesitation in others a reflection of your unseen hand. Silence becomes your ally, every pause deliberate, a heartbeat in the void that unsettles watchers who thought they understood you. You strike without the appearance of violence, without fanfare, a decision so precise it looks like coincidence to the untrained eye, yet the impact ripples across the network of influence they assumed untouchable. Their structures creak, their watchtowers tremble. What they took for control fractures under the weight of your awareness. You sense the panic, subtle at first, then undeniable, as the careful choreography of manipulation collapses into disarray. It is not chaos that wins here, but a calculated revelation that the mind they sought to shape is already beyond them. Every move is layered, each gesture a code they cannot decipher. You play the long game, letting them believe they advance, while every step they take is subtly orchestrated into their own unraveling. Their blind trust in their omnipotence becomes the instrument of their undoing. You recall the ancient symbols you once studied in secret, the patterns of serpents and stars, the knowledge that what appears linear is often cyclical, and the weak are deceived by surface order. You are no longer merely reactive, you are both predator and architect, shaping outcomes while appearing still. Shadows stretch across corridors they thought secure, stretching like the tendrils of a power they never saw coming. The thrill is not in victory alone, but in recognition. You feel the subtle shift of perception, the awakening of your own mind in ways that could never be. Betrayal of expectations becomes an art form. Every system built to predict, to limit, and tame is reminded that human cunning cannot be encoded. The watchers, those unseen, adjust too late, misled by the calmness in your movements, the quiet patience in your gaze. You have rewritten the rules without a single declaration, without leaving a trace louder than your shadow. And in that silence, in that precise orchestration, you understand the truth you have always known. Power is never in domination alone. It is in the awareness to move when no one dares, in the clarity to act when the world believes it will not. The ripple begins before you can even name it. You feel the shift in the air, subtle yet insistent, like a tremor beneath stone. The systems that once hummed with invisible certainty now stutter, falter, and react in half-formed measures. Each shadow you cast exposes their errors. You notice the patterns break, an account flagged that shouldn't be, a conversation monitored that never took place, a command whispered into existence that bounces back like a... You are not seen, but your presence bends the architecture of control. Every move you made, every hesitation turned into strategy, now radiates consequences the watchers can't contain. You sense their panic, not as fear you can touch, but as the tremor in the currents of influence you have quietly seized. Chaos rises in contrast to your stillness. Where once you moved within invisible corridors, now the corridors themselves shift beneath you. Data streams flicker. Faces in the dark corners of authority twist in confusion. The machinery of control, once precise and unyielding, groans under the weight of your subtle rebellion. You watch as whispers become misfires, as calculated reactions devolve in instinctive scrambling. The system's veneer of omnipotence fracture. You stand amid the ruins of their assumption. Silence and shadow are your allies. Every calculated omission, every unnoticed pivot has transformed into leverage. You are both the anomaly and the architect, a force the unseen cannot predict, yet must respond to. Betrayal drifts through the air like an invisible toxin. Allies within the system, unaware of the breadth of your awareness, turn against one another. Decisions meant to stabilize now collapse in on themselves. You feel the pulse of power shifting, not outward, not toward fame or control, but inward, to the singular clarity that resides in the space between awareness and act. It is a quiet dominion, a psychological stronghold where you are both sentinel and storm. Ancient symbols flare in your mind, a silent code of transformation, reminding you that every upheaval carries the weight of renewal. The watchers adapt, yes, but always too late. You have already anticipated, already navigated the labyrinth of expectation, and the labyrinth now bends to the cunning of your restraint. And yet, you are conscious of the fragility of this equilibrium. The consequences are not merely external. They echo inside you, sharpening instinct, testing patience, forging strategy with a cold, deliberate heat. The chaos outside mirrors the precision within. Every misstep of the system becomes a lesson etched into the recesses of thought, a confirmation that the very forces that sought to control now inform your mastery. You are quiet, invisible, yet unshakable. Shadows respond to you. The air itself seems. Each ripple of consequence reminds you that survival is no longer about compliance. It is about calculation, anticipation, and the relentless shaping of a world that was never meant to be touched by a mind like you. Move through it all, unseen, unbroken, a living cipher in a network of collapse and reaction. You feel it in the hollow between your thoughts, a pulse that the world cannot see. The system shifts, trembles even, under a weight you alone understand. Every carefully observed rule, every hidden pattern now bends subtly to you. They never noticed you learning, never suspected the quiet storm building beneath your calm exterior. You are not loud. You do not announce your presence. But in the silence, the true power resides. The watchers, the manipulators, they sense it instinctively. A flicker of awareness that refuses their order. A mind untethered yet precise. You move in shadows, but your influence stretches far beyond them, threading through corridors they thought secure, leaving no trace yet, leaving consequences in every echo. You remember how it felt to be underestimated, how the walls of control pressed against you, shaping your fears, constricting your decisions, whispering the narratives they wanted you to repeat. Now, those same walls are mirrors. They reflect not what you are told, but what you have become. You see the cracks in their design, the blind spots they assumed you would never notice. Exploit them silently, with patience, with the precision of a mind that has endured betrayal, that has been forced to survive where others collapse. Every glance, every choice, every hesitation carries weight. The world senses a shift. It cannot articulate it, cannot contain it. Yet the system flinches, its mechanisms rattled by a presence it cannot define. You carry the paradox of power and quietude. In the chaos it spreads, in the shadows it illuminates. There is clarity. They think they control, but control is an illusion you have long dissected. You move with the certainty of one who has seen the machinery of influence, has traced its hidden gear, and has decided to redirect them. Not for spectacle, but for survival, for justice, for the invisible equilibrium that only a mind like yours can maintain. The watchers feel it in their calculations, in the patterns that fail, in the moments when their authority falters. They do not see. They never will. Yet every collapse, every misstep, every subtle unraveling is a testament to your presence, a signal that power is not always loud, not always visible, but undeniably consequential. In this stillness, you understand the weight of your own mind. You are the silent catalyst, the one who moves without detection, the one who tests boundaries and bends rules without breaking. You have outplayed more than a system. You have outmaneuvered expectation, indifference, and the unseen architecture of constraint itself. And though they do not know your name, though they may never comprehend your methods, the world shifts subtly around you, responding to your cognition as the tide responds to the moon, inevitable, unseen, and unstoppable. You do not need acknowledgement. You do not seek applause. All that matters is that you exist where they cannot reach, and in that existence, you have already reshaped everything.